Hey, welcome to our last Sunday morning chat. I'm sorry that the course is coming to an end, but I hope that you have gotten some good stuff out of it. I'm really impressed with the writing you've all been doing. And I am really looking forward to this week, which is the collage essay, Removed from Any Other Artificial Constraints. So of course, what we've been doing so far is also collage essay. But in each of those cases, there was some outside organizing principle. Now that we've done that a couple of times, I'm hoping that you will each feel comfortable coming up with your own organizing principles, because I think those are often the most bracing and most original pieces that we get. Not the ones that follow a form that already exists, but the ones that are creating both form and content at the same time. Excuse me. So I also want to start out talking about the 4 essays that we're going to read for this week, and then we'll talk about the assignment. The first essay that I would like you guys to read is John McPhee's In Search of Marvin Gardens. For those of you who haven't read it before, it's one of the early collage essays. You'll find it in almost any collection of American essays. And it's a mixture. There's a linear story, but it's not a very interesting linear story. There is a linear story about a Monopoly tournament that McPhee and a friend are having. And we find out who gets what properties and who wins which game, but only in very miniature. And then there are all these lovely set pieces, really, portraits, interspersed of the place Marvin Gardens. And for me, that's the real magic of this essay, that you can see how these pieces, these portraitures, wouldn't work if there wasn't something pulling us through the essay. But the thing that is pulling us through the essay is really dull. I'm sorry. I think McPhee would be okay with that, right? So the details of somebody else's Monopoly tournament are not the thing of legends. In fact, the details of a Monopoly game that I'm in the middle of, and it's my turn and I have to make a decision, even those details of a Monopoly game might really bore me. And so, but they don't in this essay. It's true that we're not invested in the outcome of the games, and it's not written in a way that would suggest that we should be invested in the outcome of the games. But something about that narrative allows McPhee to pull us through an essay that really is otherwise almost just a set of photographs. And I think that it's important to notice how that functions, because there does need to be some pull through. Even in a collage essay, we need to have some forward momentum, and the ordering of pieces and the coming to some kind of resolution matters, even if we're asking the reader to do much of the work of that kind of meaning making themselves. We're still guiding it. And I think the McPhee piece is one where we see really clearly how the author is guiding us through the essay, but also how much work the author is leaving it up to us to do, so that we are still very much the people who are putting the pieces of the puzzle together. I would say the Monopoly sections function more as a map to the puzzle than they do to put the pieces together for us. And I think that's a really useful way to think about it when you're thinking about what your own through thread might be. That sometimes the through thread is also the key, the map to the essay. The next one that I'm going to ask you to read is Indian Education by Sherman Alexie. And this one has a very different through strategy. The through strategy in Indian Education is that it just goes first through 12th grade. Every grade gets its own crot, and the story develops very much through a linear timeline. This is a fabulous essay, but I don't love that strategy. And I want us to read it because I want us to see that it's a really good essay, right? There's no doubt about it. I'm certainly not sitting here bad-mouthing Sherman Alexie. But as a strategy, it's not in and of itself inherently interesting. And in a lesser writer's hands, it could be pretty deadly. So while the McPhee, which has this pull through the essay that's a little bit, it's not itself interesting, but it has forward motion through time. That's what gives us a sense that we're moving forward. In the Alexie, we kind of have this almost dead form, it's a numbered thing, 1 through 12. And the only thing that's invigorating it is the beauty of Alexie's prose and also his trenchant observations. So it's interesting to us because it's Alexei, but that doesn't mean that the form itself is inherently interesting. And I think that he's actually having to work harder because of the form to keep the piece feeling like it has much forward momentum. That it is, in fact, maybe one of those pieces, and I think he has a couple of those, that he can only write in the way that he writes them because he's already won the audience's trust and goodwill with his earlier work, right? It's an essay that if I came across it and I didn't know who Sherman Alexie was and I just glanced at the form, I might not pick it up, right? I might think, oh God, it's another numbered essay. So I want you to pay attention to how much work Alexei has to do to overcome that as he's writing this otherwise, again, very excellent essay. And you can see why the form fits for this piece. But I think it's an easy form to go to. I will pick something numbered and I will arrange my collage essay around that. And I think that it's important to note how much less interest and drama there is to the form when that's the choice that you make. The next one that we're going to read, and I'm going to toss out the content warning, it's also on the website. This one, which is called Self-Erasure, does have as its base content a suicide note. And so if that's something that you feel like you just can't read right now or ever, that's absolutely fine. Just skip this one. But Self-Erasure is an erasure essay. And here the forward motion in the essay, and also I think the only reason it can call itself an essay instead of a poem, is that it's iterative. We actually get several different erasures of the same suicide note from the author's boyfriend. And I think that it is that motion, the fact that each time what we see is a figuring out. And that's really what the essay does, right? The essay is our watching as somebody figures something out on the page. It's watching someone think something through on the page works. And I think that the iterative nature of this also works because it's a visual artifact. I have seen other writers attempt to do collage essays in which each paragraph or each crot is just a rewriting of a story. And it can work if they're short. It can work if they are short. But if they're long, at some point we start to feel more like it is self-indulgence rather than working something out on the page. But here I think, one, that this piece is not particularly long, and two, everybody gets a little extra space for such weighty content. But what's really working is that this is a visual essay. And sometimes the collage essay is. There's one in the Paris Review, I Have Been Sick for a Year, I think it's called, which is an essay, but also sort of a visual, or a collage essay, but also sort of a visual memoir. And I think that that's another place that the collage essay gives you some space and some freedom, which is that you can make the work visual. Sometimes just by how you deal with the type on the page, but other times in this sort of elevated, I'm actually thinking of this as a piece of visual and textual art at the same time way. And I think that that makes self-erasure particularly interesting as we're thinking about collage, not just mashing bits of text together, but also how are we putting visual stimulus together? How are we creating both a textual and visual collage? And the final one we're going to read is The Eating Chain by Sarah Miner. And it's a really short essay, but it does something I really love, which is that there are these two voices, one of which comes to us straightforward and the other one comes to us in parenthetical asides after each little straightforward section. And here the forward momentum of the essay is the conversational momentum of these two voices, the voice that speaks to us of events and the voice that gives us the back information and is a little more intimate with the reader. And we see the way that the back and forth here also sets up the expectation of ongoingness, gives the essay forward momentum. We want to know what that parenthetical voice has to say about whatever it is that straight to us voice has just told us. And I think that that's another way that we can achieve in the collage essay this kind of forward motion, this kind of idea that we're getting to somewhere. And that is to write it in a multivocal way, to write it in a way where our authorial voice is joined with another version of our authorial voice, and maybe even a third version of our authorial voice, or with an intertextual source. I just read a student essay, and it's very good. It's very, very good. But the student got kind of lucky, like not in life, but in art. She had an ex-boyfriend who wrote a horrible, horrible folk music album to her after they broke up. And it is self-indulgent and whiny and super, super creepy. And she has written a collage essay in which each crot is an answer back to one of the 7 songs on this EP. And so one of the 3 voices, she has the voice of herself then, the voice of herself now, and the lyrics from the album. And so one of the 3 voices is an intertextual voice. That's also true in self-erasure, right? So one of the voices in that essay is the essay of the boy, or is the voice of the boyfriend, and the other is the voice of the author as the person who is parsing and erasing parts of the suicide note. So I think that there are all sorts of strategies for forward momentum, but the thing that I'm hoping that you get out of this discussion is that we have to have forward momentum. As you work on your own pieces, I encourage you to focus on not just what do these pieces add up to, but what is it that is pulling the reader from one piece to another? What sense of discovery is there? What sense is there that we are moving from an unknown to a known, or from simple to complex, or from opaque to transparent? I think there are so many directions that you can go, but that you have to be going somewhere. That if the essay is just, here is this collection of things, and the author is completely leaving it up to the reader to put those things together with no guidance, that the chances are good what the reader is going to feel is frustrated rather than engaged. And of course, we don't want that. Just a couple of housekeeping things too before I go. One, you're going to get your essays from me a little bit late this week. I am going to Francis Marion University in South Carolina, where they have Red Mott as their common text for all of their incoming freshmen to give a talk. And I had planned to do my work tomorrow there in the cottage they're putting me up in the evening, but I have discovered that there are more plans for me than were on the itinerary. And so I'm not 100% sure that I will get to them all before I return to Chattanooga on Wednesday. The other is that next week, we're going to be having our Skype conversations, where you and I will have a conversation about the revisions of any one of your essays that you like. You get to pick one, and any other questions that you have for half an hour. And I am also fine with doing this on the phone. You should know that because I am a little bit hard of hearing, the phone is not always my best medium. I actually do a little bit better with Skype. But if that doesn't work for you, we can absolutely set up a phone call. And if we have any difficulty with hearing, we can come up with a workaround for that. And I cleverly scheduled this for spring break here on my end, which means that I have a pretty flexible schedule. So I'm going to put something up at the bottom of this page that asks you guys to identify times that are best for you. It's going to be a schedule that you can sign up for your time slots. If there's nothing on that schedule that works for you, just write and let me know and we will work something out. I'm just trying to consolidate so that my time sitting in front of the computer talking is not all in big chunks, because I think I would be really nervous by the end. Like, you're all fabulous, but I think if I tried to go straight through and it's, 6 or 7 hours of Skype phone calls with people talking about their work, that I might be a really tired person at the end of that day. So I'm going to try to spread them out throughout the week. But I won't ask anybody to be ready for them before Wednesday. So we'll go Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of next week. And I'll make sure there are enough times available that hopefully there's no competition for times. But if there is, again, and if none of the times that I have up work for you, please let me know. Great. I'm really excited to read your collage essays. Thank you. And I will see you next week.